Crystal Maiden here, and today we're going to be looking at Sonic Drift, which is basically a clone of Super Mario Kart for Sonic, but not entirely. Because the thing is, I feel like this game is a lot faster than Super Mario Kart. I would describe this game as thrilling, to be honest. I know that a lot of people don't like this game, and I don't know whether it's purely for mimetic purposes, like, why is Sonic in a car even though he can outrun everybody on foot? But I think it's really fun. I didn't like it very much at first because I didn't really know how to control it. I didn't know how the drift works. Basically, in order to drift, you have to hold down A and B at the same time while you're turning. And it's best to listen to the audio cues when you're drifting, and when you hear the sound effect happen for the second time, then it's a good idea to stop drifting, because if you drift too much, then you'll spin out. There's a lot of items on the center of the track. And I don't mean items like in Super Mario Kart, where you get them into your inventory slot and then you can use them. I mean items like invincibility, which makes it so that if you hit a racer, it doesn't really inconvenience you all that much. But it doesn't really... There aren't very many opportunities for you to hit racers in this game, as long as you stay on the track. The game rewards you immensely for staying on the track, because this isn't like most racing games where all of the AI cheat because they have rubber band AI that makes it so that they go faster if you're ahead of them. Seriously, I hate that mechanic. This is part of why I don't like racing games, because it doesn't really feel fair. It doesn't feel like you're actually being rewarded for your skill, because you're racing against computers that can just speed themselves up illogically when they're behind you, and yet don't keep going fast when they're ahead of you. But this game doesn't do that. And because of that, as long as you stay on the track, you can actually overlap these guys by quite a bit. I mean, it's annoying. It is pretty easy to get off the track. I sort of recommend staring at the map screen on the top of the screen so that you know exactly what direction to turn, because the turns can pop up really quickly without warning. And again, I didn't like this game when I first played it because I didn't know how the drift worked, but then I looked at the controls for the drift on Sonic Adventure DX, and I found out. Each character has their own special ability that you use by pressing up on the control pad when you have 2 rings. Now, I really don't think this is a very unintuitive control scheme. Like, you would not expect up on the control pad to activate a special ability, but the Game Gear is a handheld that only has like 2 buttons, or maybe it even has only 1 button. I've never really looked at it. The point is, button limitations are the reason for the unintuitive controls in this game. Like, they can't have the drift and the special ability be normal controls because of the button limitation, so I completely forgive it. Now that I know how to control it, it's not that big a deal. But anyways, I'm going to be showing off the other characters later. For now, it's just Sonic. Sonic's special ability is that he has a nitro boost, like it's F-Zero, so he can go faster than normal for a short period of time. And I can understand why that would require rings, because rings are like magical power rings that they result from the chaos energy that naturally appears in the world. Chaos energy is basically the magic of the Sonic universe, so there's magic everywhere, which explains why there are so many characters with supernatural abilities going around. The springs, obviously, they launch you in the air, and The reason that they're awesome is that they eliminate the necessity for you turning. Which is weird. I mean, you'd think you'd just keep going straight, but you don't. So basically, you want to hit the springs as much as possible. You want to stay in the center of the road. And I'm overlapping all of these guys ridiculously easily because I'm staying on the track. And I just love how much it rewards you for staying on the track, because staying on the track is a lot harder than you'd expect. This game requires your complete, intense concentration. You can't... I mean, my eyes start to hurt after a while because I don't even really want to blink because I'm so focused on the track. Because I just love how fast-paced and thrilling this game is, because you really feel like you're moving really fast. But that also creates a problem where everything pops up on the horizon ridiculously fast and instantaneously. I don't feel like it's much of a problem, though. But it's so fast-paced that when you see those signs that you can run into if you get off the road, they're pointing in the direction that you're supposed to be turning. But they show up so fast that it's hard to register in your brain that they're telling you that. If you haven't noticed by now, the invincibility theme is actually a remix of Toot Toot Sonic Warrior from Sonic CD. I don't know what it is about the 8-bit Sonic games and constantly remixing that song. I mean, it's good, but is it really that great? I mean, I basically consider that song to be the theme of the 8-bit Sonic games because it's used so much. And the annoying thing about the items is that they cancel each other out. Let's say you're invincible and you run into a spring. Well, when that spring launches you up, then your invincibility gets cancelled out. And because of that, you can feel like you want to avoid the items. Although invincibility is pretty useless, especially when you're behind. I mean, especially when you're in front of everyone. The thing is, though, it's really easy to not notice that you're overlapping everyone because you're so focused on staying on the track. It's the track that's the real enemy of this game. So I don't really care about the opponents I'm racing against. I care about not getting off the road, because you really feel like an idiot when you veer off the road and you spin out. And it takes a little while to accelerate back to top speed again. I don't think this game saves very well that you completed a Grand Prix. So I think that if you start a different Grand Prix with a different character, then the game doesn't remember that you beat the previous Grand Prix with the other character. So you gotta complete them all with one character in one go. I think that's how it works. And this game doesn't have a save system, so if you turn the game off while you're in the middle of completing Grand Prix, then you'll have to do it all over again. I don't think that the other racers can use the items. Like they never turn invincible, and they never hit the red dash pads, which don't look like dash pads at all. I mean, maybe it's just the Game Gear limitations, but I don't know, they just look kind of weird. But the opponents don't use items or anything, so it's pretty easy to overlap them, but I don't think that makes this a bad game, because it's still really fun and thrilling to me. And as long as you're focused on not veering off the road, so you don't really care that your opponents are not a big deal. If anything, your opponents constantly getting in front of you would be a huge annoyance, because the road is incredibly narrow. That's one of the biggest complaints I have about the drift games, is that the roads are incredibly narrow. And so, trying to make it so that you're in front of your opponents is the biggest pain in the world. Because now they're in front of you, and you have to adjust your position so that you're to the left or right of them to get around them. But don't do it too much, or you'll veer off the road, which is very easy to do because the roads are narrow. And God help you if you come to a turn. Because then you have pretty much no hope of catching up to them. It's like you're trying to stay in the center of the road at all times, but you can't stay in the center of the road when you're trying to catch up to someone. Because all of the racers are always in the center of the road. And that's why I like the fact that this game is easy in the sense that all of your opponents can be overlapped. Because it would be an incredibly annoying game if all of your opponents were ahead of you. And a lot of people complain about the fact that Sonic is stuck in a car. But to be honest, there's a lot of logical reason for why he would be in a car. Like, for one, it's a go-karting game. Obviously, it would be against the rules for him to be on foot. And look, you can pass through opponents when you're invincible. That's awesome. You don't stun them and cause them to spin out like in Super Mario Kart, though. But it would be unnecessary at this point. And I think the invincibility boxes, they cancel each other out, but not in a bad way because they restart the timer entirely. But anyways, there's a lot of logical reasons for why Sonic would be in a car. Like, cars can carry cargo a lot better than a regular person running around, you know? And in a later racing game, Sonic Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, he needs that car to fly over the water and stuff. And he can't do that on his own, so he needs that car. And maybe he just wants to have a challenge. Because, of course he'd be able to beat all these guys in a foot race. But it's a real triumph beating them in a car. Because then he's limiting himself, but he still manages to win. He's beating them with his driving skill alone. Although I can't really imagine Sonic being a good driver. He's reckless, that's his personality. He's a reckless thrill seeker. And reckless thrill seekers don't tend to be very good drivers. I mean, he's a hero, and so he has a sense of responsibility to him, doesn't want to break laws like driving laws, I get that. And he's not really an idiot, that's the other thing. He's not an idiot, he is kind of clever. So he wouldn't be that stupid as to be bad at driving and endangering himself, but at the same time, a reckless thrill seeker does not strike me as a good driver. Like, he would go as fast as possible and steer wildly and stuff, and take all sorts of shortcuts. But he can't take shortcuts in this game because he'd be driving off the road and driving through the sand, and that would break the rules. In Super Mario Kart, it was impossible to take shortcuts across the track because there were these walls everywhere. This game doesn't have walls, it just has invisible walls. Like, you drive off the track and then you spin out, and then you're completely incapable of driving in any other way than back onto the road. So yeah, like, there's this internet meme that says, and that's why Sonic Drift sucks. That comes from Sonic Shorts, which I think is pretty funny. It can get vulgar at times, but most of the time it's pretty funny. I don't know if that meme is completely serious or not, because again, a lot of people hate this game purely because Sonic is driving a car. I mean, this game has some legitimate problems, I guess, but I think it's really fun. I mean, really, my only complaint with it is that I'm so intensely focused on it to avoid veering off the road that my eyes start to hurt because I'm not blinking enough. And because I'm playing a certain character, but I'll get to him later. This game was never released outside Japan. For some reason. And I have no idea why. It's a pretty good game. I guess because it's only got 4 characters and only 6 tracks, but those tracks vary depending on the Grand Prix. And in free run mode, you can choose whichever version of whichever track you want, and just play it just fine. So I don't really mind that there's not very many characters to choose from. Besides, Sonic Drift 2 introduced more racers, but they were just clones of previously existing characters. So it didn't really matter, aside from the superficial fact that you're playing as a character you might personally like more, but they were still clones of pre-existing characters, so what's the point? I haven't talked about the soundtrack of this game yet. I like it when I'm hearing it, but the problem is that all the songs in this game are ridiculously short, and as a result, there's not enough to them, and so they can get repetitive pretty easily. Especially if you're just listening to them on their own, rather than listening to them while playing the game. But there are songs in the game that I really like. So I think that's at least a point in its direction. And I don't think it's technological limitations that all the songs are short, because there are plenty of Game Gear Sonic games that had great songs that weren't ridiculously short. I like the music that plays when you're selecting a driver. I really like that. You can't linger on the screen for too long, or it'll get boring and repetitive listening to it, because there's not enough to it. But you're not supposed to linger on it. It's more excusable having a repetitive menu theme than having a repetitive level theme, because you're going to be spending a lot more time in the level. The weird thing is that, well, I guess it's really not that weird. The cars that everyone's driving, they're actually all given wind-themed names. And when Tails makes his inventions, they usually have wind themes to their names. Like, he builds the tornado and the cyclone and the hurricane. And he even builds the... I'm trying to think of what that other vehicle was called. Well, let's see, there was the ocean tornado, there was the Magna hurricane, there was the hovercraft. Oh, I just had it. Well, there's the cyclone, and then there was the tornado. Damn it, what was that hovercraft's name? Well, the Aqua Blast. Oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with wind at all. Something weird about this game is that even though most racing games tend to show you at the bottom left corner of the screen exactly what your ranking is in the race, but you don't see that you're in first here. Like, there's really no indication that you're in first. I mean, if you look at the top of the screen, Tails looks really upset. Like, he looks like he saw a ghost. And that's the face that he has when he loses after a race. So I guess that's supposed to be an indication that you're winning. But none of the other characters look that way. So I guess it's supposed to mean that he's the one losing. But if anything, it looks like Amy's the one losing, because I just looked at the map screen, and she was the one that was in last. And it even says right there, she's in fourth. I love how devastated Amy looks at the end of it. It's like, she looks so sad. And that's weird, like, again, like, Tails keeps looking upset. And he doesn't even look upset, just... I like this game quite a bit. I can understand why some people would not like it, especially if they only played it for a few seconds without learning how to drift. Because when I first played this game, I hated it because I didn't bother to look at the controls prompt that showed up at the beginning and told me that, hey, this is how you drift. And so I kept veering off the road because I was trying to turn normally and it didn't work. Because you don't turn wide enough when you try to turn normally. I absolutely love the fact that there's a drift mechanic at all, though. Because in Super Mario Kart, there really isn't a drift in place. I mean, I guess you can hop and turn at the same time, and that's supposed to be a sort of drift. But the fact that there's a drift mechanic makes turning on sharp turns a lot easier. Every turn in this game is a sharp turn that requires you to use the drift. And I love that, because it keeps things consistent. Because if there were turns that didn't require you to drift, and in fact that punished you for doing so, then it would make things inconsistent. And so it would make mastering the tracks even harder, because it required a lot more memorization, knowing exactly how to deal with every part of the track. And you would drift when you shouldn't, and you would not drift when you should, and that would be annoying. I haven't really played that many racing games, to be honest. I mean, I played Super Mario Kart, and I played Mario Kart Super Circuit. I think that's what's called the GBA one, which a lot of people say is absolutely horrible. I'm not really sure why. I mean, it seems just fine to me. My favorite memory with that game is I would drive backwards in, not the Grand Prix, but I think it was Quick Race or something. I would drive backwards, and I would just stay at the item boxes, and I would just keep on spamming the items and just tormenting all of the other racers. Like, I would just use lightning, and I would turn invisible and make sure that one of the racers ran into me, and then I would just hold down A and B at the same time to drive really slowly, and I would just drive in circles and constantly run into the racers over and over again. That was really fun. And a racer would go from first place to dead last because of me. Like, as you can see, I had a lot of fond memories with that game. Like, I even unlocked all of the original Super Mario Kart racetracks. So it's kind of weird hearing people say that that's a horrible game. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's a Game Boy Advance game, so the multiplayer sucks, because in order to play multiplayer with the Game Boy Advance, you've gotta... Well, you don't need to know someone who has that game, because you can actually play the multiplayer without a cartridge in your GBA slot at all, as long as somebody has it. But you need a Game Boy Advance connector thing. And you need someone with a different Game Boy Advance, or you need to have a second one yourself. So the multiplayer was almost inaccessible. Unless you're in Japan, where the population density is a lot more tight, and so it makes sense that they would think it's a good idea, because they don't have a problem with it at all. And they're the ones making all the video games. I think I might have all of the so-called bad Mario Kart games, because I've got Super Mario Kart, which I don't really care about, although I played a lot when I was really little. I've got Super Mario Kart, and I've got Mario Kart Super Circuit, and I've got Mario Kart Double Dash. And the reason I like that game is because you can play as two characters. And I love multiplayer games in that you can play as any character you want. And so if you can choose two characters, then you can play as two characters. So you can play as like Peach and Daisy. I don't really like Peach as a character when it comes to the actual series, but she can be written really well by a good writer who develops her and stuff. And Daisy is a tomboy. Although she can be really annoying in the Mario Kart series, because she has this taunt where she says, "Hi, I'm Daisy," and she says literally nothing else for the entire series. And that can get annoying. Yeah, so something unique to Sonic Drift is character-specific endings. The next Sonic Drift game doesn't do that for some reason. I guess they ran out of time, but there's no reason they couldn't have at least reused the endings from the previous game. So here's Tails. Now, the reason I think Tails is the best character in the game is because his special ability is that he can do a spring jump. because he can act like he hit a spring at any time, just from collecting enough rings. And naturally, this can make the game even easier because you always turn at exactly the right times. Like, you don't have to turn when you're on a sharp turn if you're doing a sprint. I don't really notice a significant difference in speed for most of the characters. It's just the worst character in the game that I find to be really noticeably slow. Amy's pretty slow too, but not unbearably so. Like, see, she can get ahead of Tails, and with some difficulty she can get ahead of him and then get ahead of Eggman. I don't know why Eggman was in the front though, because he's the slowest character in the game. Amy's special ability is that she can fire hearts, which I hate the way she looks in the victory screen. Like, it looks like she has her tongue sticking out and she's looking up at you in a troll face. It looks really lame. It looks really lame. I don't really get what... Like, there are 2 racers in the game that their special ability is to fire items out at other racers. But I have never, ever successfully hit a racer. Ever. Even when I was behind them. I would use a special ability like the missiles or the hearts, and they would never hit. I mean, you'd think that they would program a homing mechanism into them, but no. And the reason that Eggman sucks is that he moves extremely slowly, and so you got to make sure that you're at the left or right side of the track when you're starting out a race. Because if you start moving immediately from the center, then you'll run into the other racers, and they'll all drive through you and make you spin out. Like, how's that fair? They drive through you instead of spinning out themselves? How's that fair? See, you gotta drive to the right, and then they'll drive past you. And you can't prevent them from driving past you, because they'll just make you spin out if you stay in the center. But they don't spin out. Yeah, that's fair. And its drift sucks because it doesn't make an audio cue when it does it. So it's a lot harder to tell when you're supposed to stop drifting, because you don't really hear the sound effect that plays to tell you to stop drifting. And his drift really doesn't look... It doesn't look like he's drifting at all. I tried as hard as I could, but I could not win. I could not beat this game with Eggman, because he just sucks that much. Like, I could beat the yellow race, but not the red one. He just constantly gets behind because he sucks so much. He's so slow. And his drift is terrible. So yeah, I'm showing you all of the other endings. I was not able to beat the game with Eggman. I was, however, able to beat the game with Tails and Amy and Sonic. But I didn't feel like beating the game again with Tails and Amy for this. Mainly because I was so angry at the fact that I couldn't beat the game with Eggman. I mean, I got so close. Tails has a kind of lame ending. He just thumbs up and stuff. I mean, he doesn't even get congratulations from his brother. Like, Tails and Sonic have a brotherly relationship, but Sonic did, like, caress his head like a brother would or something. And Amy is a stalker, so she just flirts with Sonic at the end. Like, this is actually the first video game where Amy and Eggman are playable. And the result is pretty underwhelming. So that was Sonic's Drift. And the next Sonic game after this is Sonic Triple Trouble. See you then.